I'm with Robbie Francevic. We've only got a few moments to go. And Robbie, a tense moment for you before the start of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Do you think you can still win it?
Just let's hope it stays together.
Good luck, mate. The whole of Australia is riding with you. 30 seconds to go before the start of the Castrol Grand Final. Here's Mike Raymond.
Thank you very much, Neil Crompton. Well, Robbie hasn't been lacking confidence throughout the series. We're 10 seconds away from the start. The balloons go up, the flag goes up. We're ready for the grand final of the Australian Touring Car Championship, exclusive to 7 Sport. They're racing. Georgie Fury gets away smartly, very smartly indeed. Brock's gathered up by John Bower. The Chickadee Chicken Man goes the outside route, and a brilliant start by Robbie Francevic right down the outside. It's Georgie Fury in car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan. He'll lead them down to the first turn, and look at the gap he's put over Peter Brock. Brock picks up second. Dickie Johnson up on the inside of John Bower, forcing his way through. Bailey gets the sideways shift, and Peter McLeod makes a brilliant start and comes back down on the inside. But the man doing the charging is Robbie Francevic in 10 and Dickie Johnson in number 17.
No big partners there between John Bower and Dick Johnson as they went through that corner. Crunch they went, and look, there's a guard rubbing on the rear right tyre of Francevic's car, the 44 Volvo.
They go through Bitcher Pave corner and work their way up down to the Goodyear Bridge. There's the field going through. The race leader is George Fury for Peter Jackson Nissan. And following him very closely is Peter Brock. They're then followed, of course, by 44 John Bower. Dick Johnson being the next driver through, and car number 17, the Motorcraft Parts V8 Mustang. Then Graham Bailey, the Chickadee Chicken Man, in car number 2, is sitting just back behind him. Here they come over the dogleg, down into Castrol corner. It's Fury, followed by Peter Brock. Third spot held by Bower. Next is Johnson, then Bailey going through very smartly indeed, and they were then followed by Peter McLeod, but Fury opening the gap with 34 still to go.
Sensational start by George Fury. He really is pouring on the power, but look at Francevic. He gives McLeod the go by down the main straight, puts him up into 6th position on the racetrack after coming from 10th spot on the grid. He's intent on staying in touch with the leaders throughout this race.
There's Bow going through 44. We detected a tyre rubbing there in the opening lap. Maybe just got a touch, but Dick Johnson was very, very forceful in getting up very quickly through the traffic. I think Johnson wanted to dispose of Graham Bailey and sit right in behind the number 44 Volvo. Francevic perfectly positioned. There's a nice crunch going on there in the background involving Jim Richards. But as they exit that turn and work their way to the Goodyear Bridge, Fury running away with this one. Out in front. And that's the only thing he has to do today. Win and then hope that Robbie Francevic doesn't finish in the top 8 or 9.
Graham Bailey in the yellow and orange striped car, and there's the shot from race cam, Dick Johnson's car. John Bower on the track right in front of him. Bailey is just in behind him. Bailey, of course, the surprise packet of qualifying, putting his Chickadee Commodore on the second row of the grid with a time of 1 minute 15. There he is, the third car in this train going through Castrol corner. John Bower straightens up. There's Johnson, there's Bailey mounting the challenge.
It was a fine qualifying performance from Bailey. He's got extra horsepower in the Commodore today, and you can see him putting it to great effect as he rounds up the outside of Dick Johnson. And the Commodore will have the legs. Can Dick come back through under brakes through the kink in the left-hander? There's the shot from race cam. There was the shot from race cam as they go through at the bottom. So the Chickadee Commodore goes up 1 notch. He's in behind John Bower, who's sporting some new brake coolants on the outside of the wheel to the front of the Volvo. We'll see them in just a moment as we have a look here at Bailey.
Keep in mind, Robbie Francevic started from position number 8. He can't expect any favours on his way to the front of the field today. You'll find that although Dick Johnson and Graham Bailey haven't really got a chance of winning this championship, they are not going to give 1 spot away. There's Bailey in the number 2 car. John Bower just ahead, then Johnson, then Robbie Francevic opening the gap all the time on Graham Crosby and Jimmy Richards.
Notice these, what look to be just shiny discs on the side of the front wheels of both the Volvos. They work like an extraction fan. They pull air through the middle of the wheel to enable the brakes to remain cool in a longer race like this one. 35 laps the journey, 2.62 kilometres around the course. It's a long way, and it's the first time we've seen those on the Volvos this year. Front wheel hopping off the ground on the Volvo as Francevic puts the horsepower down, and he is really hauling through the field. We'll get the stopwatches going shortly and give an idea of the split. There's John Shepard, team manager for the Volvo Valvoline team. And
he sees no evil. He obviously doesn't want to hear any evil. Coming into the bottom turn, Robbie Francevic, number 10, works his way towards the Goodyear Bridge.
Real dogfight going on behind Francevic too, between Jim Richards and Graham Crosby.
I think that Robbie Francevic, as soon as he can position himself in the top 4 or 5. He's certainly up there, and know that he can stay there and defend that for the entire race. That's the way he's been attacking the last few rounds of the Touring Car Championship. George Fury doesn't want him to do that. George wants to get him up front and race him for the remaining 33 or 32 laps.
One of the interesting things that happened to the Nissan team this morning in the warm-up was that Fury's car blew a turbo. They do a precautionary turbo change on Saturday night after a very hard qualifying session, and they had a failure with the turbo, so perhaps that's an Achilles heel with the Nissan. It's been extremely reliable all year, other than a small piston problem they had in Adelaide, and they also had some wheel bearing failures, should I say, at the first round at Oran Park. You'd expect that with a brand new car, and today is its 10th run.
Under normal circumstances, you would think that Robbie would be up putting a lot of pressure on Dick Johnson at this stage. There's our race leader, though, the Talmalmo farmer, George Fury, and behind him is Peter Brock and the Mobile Commodore. They're running 1-2 in the Castrol Grand Final here at Oran Park as they make their way down to Pepsi Corner and the run to Pave, which will take them up over the top of the Goodyear Bridge. There's the split. First to second, and then the scrap continuing back in third, with John Bauer having Graham Crosby all over him and Dick Johnson sitting in behind them.
Brock underneath the Goodyear Bridge. Great start from the leader of the Holden dealer team. Some conjecture this morning amongst the team as to which tyres they'd opt for the race. The ambient temperature here at the moment pretty low, and Brock was thinking along the lines that the Pirelli D3 tyres may have suited the job. Undecided whether to use those in 16-inch diameter format or go for the 17-inch Bridgestones that they've used for a number of races this year. I must admit, in the haste on the grid, I didn't have a chance to look. There's John Harvey, Martin Watt, one of the chief mechanics of the Holden dealer team. So it'll remain to be seen whether or not the weight of the Commodore and the performance of the Commodore is going to knock its tyres around. But I tell you what, I think he's starting to close in just a little on Fury.
These two have got reasonable break now.
Coming down beneath the Goodyear Bridge, just back behind Peter Brock, you'll see the scrap starting to develop. Now watch this. John Bauer, Graham Crosby, then Dick Johnson. Now you remember a couple of laps ago, Robbie Francevic had daylight behind him, but he hasn't got it any longer because Jimmy Richards is closing up very, very quickly indeed behind Robbie Francevic, as you'll notice there. So we have quite a scrap going with these 5 cars. Bauer presently 3rd on the track, Bailey is 4th, Johnson is 5th, then Francevic 6th, and Jimmy Richards 7th.
Thank you, Murray.
Now Francevic needs to finish in the top 9. Jimmy Richards has come on like gangbusters in the last 3 circuits here at Oran Park.
And I think the performance of the championship so far in the closing stages has been that of Jim Richards as he now tries to plunge through on the inside and take Francevic, which he does quite comfortably. Beautiful braking manoeuvre from Richards, reigning Australian Touring Car Champion for perhaps another 30 or 40 minutes at least anyway. He's up into 3rd place in the title, but look at the power here of the Volvo. This is where the grunt of the Volvo should hold through, but no. Excellent handling from the BMW enables Jim to keep the boot in just a little longer through that kink.
Well, Robbie waved Richards through on the inside coming down to Castrol Corner. I think was just going to pass him back on the front straight. That hasn't happened.
The 85 champion leading the likely 86 champion in 6th and 7th spots on the racetrack at the moment with 7 laps down in the race.
Tell you what, halfway through the year you would have written off the BMW as a top 3 finisher, and I think hats off to Frank Gardner and Jim Richards and the rest of the crew to get this car up into 3rd. They're in a safe 3rd, by the way, in the championship. They can't be knocked out of that. So that is a great performance. There's Frank Gardner.
Always smiling. Enjoys his motor racing. Be happy about that.
There's
put one up over the Volvos.
There's been a resurgence of performance from the BMWs, particularly in Europe, in the European Touring Car Championship. They are right on the pace again. So I think we're lining up for a very exciting James Hardy 1000 in the not too distant future.
So Jim Richards running away a little from Robbie Francevic at this stage of the Castrol Grand Final here at Oran Park. Bad luck for Colin Bond, car number 75. Cole's had better days with the Ignis Alpha entry. It's going nowhere in today's Grand Final.
Yesterday he had a problem with the cam belt jumping one tooth on the cam drive, which threw the timing out in the car. and they were running their strong engine this weekend. Obviously, they've got a problem that's put him out of contention.
Well, Richard has been able to dispose of Robbie Francevic. He's now moving in behind Dick Johnson in the motorcraft, number 17 V8 Mustang, up over Goodyear Bridge. The dice for third spot, John Bow in car number 44, the second of the Valvoline dealer team Volvos, and right behind him we have car number 2, Chicken Man, Graham Bailey. Oop, snag with the Jag, number 12, Gary Wilmington. Looks like he's out of the running, back into the pit area. There was a lot of smoke coming out of the car, so bad luck there for Gary.
You can see a bit of the coolant dripping out of the car. Graham Bailey, the hard charger here in the Chickadee Commodore, car 2. Right in behind John Bow, the reigning Australian driving champion. Said to me this morning, gee, these touring car guys give it some stick. He hasn't had to rub elbows like this for a while.
Things must seem quite peaceful in the Mondial compared to these things with roofs on top of them.
I'll tell you one of the interesting things in the Volvo team at the moment is that Robbie wins today. It'll be the 14th Australian Championship that John Shepherd's had involvement with. It's not a bad career record, the team manager.
He's done very well. Graham Bailey just showing John Bow. He's got a bit of stick there in the Chickadee Commodore, but unfortunately Bow had the lie for the next turn.
They're both going to get some stick shortly from Jim Richards, who's got by Dick Johnson and is closing on this pair quite rapidly. There he is.
As Jim, of course, won 7 out of the 10 championship rounds last season to take the crown, but his bogey track was Oran Park.
Yes, didn't he get in some strife here last year, tapping the wall and carving the BMW up a bit. I think it's only a matter of time here before Bailey gets through on Bow. He appears to have the pace. John's doing a bit more sliding than he would like to at this stage, although he was opting for a fairly hard tyre in the hope that it would be looking good at the end of the 35 laps.
Graham Bailey from the Central Coast of New South Wales. Chickadee Chicken Man.
Look at Richards, he is really closing the gap.
Once again, they come out of Castrol turn, down the long front straight here at Oran Park, and there's the man making the big moves at the moment, carrying the number 1 on his car, the JPS Team BMW, as third and fourth fight it out. John Bow, 44, the Valvoline Volvo. Graham Bailey in the Chickadee Commodore, number 2.
Bailey pulls it out coming down the straight there every lap for the last 3 or 4 laps, but hasn't been able to get by. Obviously trying to get back underneath Bow, but Bow hasn't given him the line yet.
The BMW today is using a new low-profile tyre that they haven't had for some 12 months. They went out of production for a while, and then Gardner and the team managed to get some back into the country. And the car very well set up on its rubber at the moment. One of the other extraordinary things about the BMW that I only learnt yesterday, you often notice how hard the car appears to ride. We see that as we travel around Australia. In each corner of the car, it's sprung to the degree of some 2,000 pounds, which is around about twice the normal spring rates that you'd have on something like a Commodore or perhaps even the Volvo.
I tell you what, Jim is ready to spring a surprise today.
Bailey has a go. Easy, yes.
Very easy, but Bow says yes. Well, you've got to do this. You've got to get the exit right as well, not just the entrance.
And
classic stuff.
Graham tapped the fence then with his rear bumper coming out. John Bow, the thinker.
They're coming up on Ratcliffe, I believe. Put a lap on him. They'll swish by him very, very quickly indeed.
Up front, meantime, George Fury still doing it quite comfortably ahead of Peter Brock. This is where the battle is, though. 3rd, 4th and 5th.
Graham's probably learned horsepowers and everything. We've got to get the exit right next time. That was a very good dive beneath John Bow under brakes at Castrol Corner.
I tell you what Bailey is doing, and that's braking very late. Giving those front brakes on the Commodore a workout. It's been one of the problems with the Commodores this year. Construction of brake pads has changed in the last 12 months. And there's been a lot of experimenting with the various types of compounds, and one of the cars that suffered in all those changes has been the Commodore. Graham Crosby and certainly John Harvey have both been recipients of all kinds of different flat spots and brake problems from earlier in the season. So George Fury still leads from Peter Brock.
3.6 seconds is the gap between first and second.
Tight line that time from Bailey. That's what he wanted to do the last lap around, so he'll be in better shape the next time they come down that dog leg to Castrol Corner on John Bower.
Bailey, as we look at John Shepherd, is unique amongst the Commodore drivers insofar as he runs a 17-inch Dunlop tyre called a Denlock, which they use quite a bit in endurance type racing in Europe, in the European Touring Car Championship and the World Endurance Championship. It's a tyre that can be run quite successfully and reasonably fast when it deflates. It doesn't fall off the beat of the rim.
Look at this. Kenny Matthews and the Yellow Pages Directory Commodore moves to the left side of the racetrack, gives this trio racing room. Good move from Ken, looking in his mirrors. And they continue their scrap with Bailey getting close. Down over this part of the racetrack, Jim Richards still closing on Graham Bailey.
Well, you recall 2 weeks ago, Richards having finished second in the Touring Car Championship title round at Winton. That was his best performance since the opening round back at Oran Park. He wants to charge back through the field.
They're going to have to get past John Bower here because he's holding these two up, I think, Bailey and Richards, because the leaders, Fury and Brock, are getting well away now. I mentioned a moment ago the gap between Fury and Brock first to second is 3.6 seconds. The gap from Fury back to John Bower in third place is 18 seconds. Very substantial indeed.
Bearing in mind that if Robbie Francevic finishes any further up than 10th position, he will win the championship despite Fury's finishing position. And if Robbie falls out of the top 10, then George must finish in the top 4 to get the necessary points to overhaul Francevic's points tally.
Going past our commentary position, I see Graham Crosby arm out the window and signalling to his pits. I don't know whether he's got a problem. We'll keep an eye on him and see what transpires.
Crosby opted for a very hard tyre, a Dunlop D09 compound. He also figured that it would be good to have a strong tyre at the end of the 35 laps.
Well, this scrap still continues. John Bower, Graham Crosby, and look at Jim Richards getting closer all the time. Back behind them, of course, Dickie Johnson still trying to contain Robbie Francevic. Oh, here comes Bailey again, down the inside. That'll leave him wide coming out of that turn, will it? Just slightly, and Richards now closes up. So I think we could have a scrap on our hands here with Richards if he can get on even terms here with Bailey on the tight part of the circuit.
15 laps down, 20 remaining in this Castrol Grand Final.
Here's Bailey.
Oh, Jim running very wide on that occasion.
He's trying to set this up for an inside. He's going to put plenty of pressure on the chicken man. But Graham Bailey has driven a copybook race, made a dive at John Bower.
I reckon that Richards is going to ruffle a few feathers here in the not too distant future. When two drivers like Bower and Bailey get involved in dices, they can often become so involved they forget what's happening behind. Incidentally, Fury lapping in 1 minute 16.5 seconds, 2.5 seconds off his qualifying pace, so it's a fairly slow pace out there at present. And there's the shot of race cam looking back at Robbie Francevic, the series leader at the moment in car 10.
This is the dice for 6th place. Johnson running in 6th. Robbie Francevic is 7th. Robbie's got close on a couple of occasions. But Dick's Mustang really runs this track very, very well.
Just behind this pair, Graham Crosby is all over the road, slipping and sliding, and has got Tony Longhurst in the BMW 325 all over him like a rash.
I would think that won't be long before we see Crosby into the pits. Yes, in fact, he goes into the pits right beneath our commentary box. So the two scraps in the race.
Well, this is a tyre change.
And this gives a bit of breathing space to Robbie Francevic because he can't afford to drop any further positions, being in 7th place on the track.
You also can't afford to make pit stops in sprint races, and Graham Crosby will be very frustrated. He went for a Dunlop D09, as I said before. That's Russell Stuckey from Dunlop's racing division, a tyre technician.
Well, Graham Crosby has a few woes in the pit area as they discuss. Whoops. Johnny Bower under a little pressure here from Graham Bailey once again. Jim Richards still there. The two scraps in the race are really the ones that we've been following. This one here, and of course the Dick Johnson, Robbie Francevic.
This is going to produce action shortly. Bailey is driving so hard, and Richards getting up under him there as they get back onto the main straight.
I think Jim will sit in the draft here for a spell.
The BM gives away quite a bit of horsepower to the Commodore, about 300 brake horsepower at the very best for the 635 BM, whereas the Commodores now, and not too many of them are talking about horsepower figures, but they're up around 400. Doesn't Jim throw the car around?
I think Jim's doing an unsettling job here.
Yep, left and right, so that Bailey sees plenty of black in the mirrors, no matter where he looks.
And he'll start concentrating on covering his tracks. There's Fury. Meanwhile, that's how far in front he is. Half the circuit. He's skipping away from Peter Brock at this stage. Crosby's back on the racetrack, but he's certainly dropped well and truly out of the top dozen. To have a pit side talk for a discussion on what tyres to run.
Yes, he's lost the best part of a lap there, Graham Crosby.
It's becoming somewhat frustrating, I guess, for Graham Bailey. He can get close to John Bauer. This could be interesting, though. And watch Richards use all of this. Coming down the outside of the slower car. Richards will go down the inside. No, that didn't work. It was Bob Holder. He pulled out of the way.
Very wide. Goodness me. I tell you, if you get out there too often amongst those marbles, it'll be curtains. Poor old Bob Holden got tangled up in the middle of it.
So there wasn't too much Bob could do about it. He headed for the inside, did the right thing. Would have been a bit different if he'd been caught on the outside.
Bailey survived.
Yes, he has. He just drops off maybe a couple of metres, takes him a lap or so to get it back again. But Richard certainly hasn't lost his momentum in the JPS BMW. Car number 1. Oh, Bailey a little sideways coming out of that turn.
That's what Richards is banking on.
Yeah, Richards going to put plenty of pressure on here, make no mistake. I rather doubt there'd be any sort of touch of bumpers. He hasn't got to do that. He's just going to dart from left to right, right back to left, and poor Graham won't know where he's coming from next.
Frank smiling at last.
There's a couple of other disputed placings on at the moment in the championship, aside from the Francevic Fury battle, as we look at Dick Johnson and Racecam, because the JPS team drivers are 3rd and 4th, 130, 110 points apiece, and then Graham Crosby and Dick Johnson both share 97 points. So depending on the outcome of this race, we may see a number of changes in those minor placings around 4th and 5th.
The Castrol Grand Final, round 10 of the Australian Touring Car Championship here at Oran Park in Sydney, and you can see there on the racetrack, Jim Richards has got by the chicken man, Graham Bailey, and has moved up into 4th position. John Bauer goes through in 3rd spot. There's Richards. Now Graham Bailey starting to slip and slide just a little too much, and Richards finally found the opening he'd been looking for about 10 laps.
Once again, they come down towards Bitchapave Corner. Bailey might have been passed, but he hasn't given up chasing Jim back for the spot. As Richards disappears over the top of the Goodyear Bridge in car number 1. And meanwhile, back at the head of the pack, it's Farmer George, car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline, running away with today's grand final here at Oran Park after snookering pole position yesterday.
Still 3.3 seconds ahead of Peter Brock. The lead has fluctuated between about 3.1, 3.6, but Brock really hasn't been able to cut the gap appreciably.
George Fury certainly being the man to watch in the Touring Car Championship from mid-season. 41 years of age, comes from Talmalmo in New South Wales, driving the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. And there, of course, is the rundown of rounds. A non-finish at Amaroo, 2nd at Simmons, win at Sandown, 3rd at Adelaide, 1st at Wanneroo, 4th at Surfers, and wins, of course, at Calder Lakeside and a 3rd at Winton. 2nd overall in the series by 18 points. George Fury.
Add to that some Southern Cross Rally victories and Australian Rally Championships, and you've got probably the best all-rounder in Australian motorsport. Still yet to win a national title in the touring car ranks, but he's come very close in '86. He also came very close a couple of years back as well in the Bluebird, and still the fastest man around the mountain in the Group C Nissan Bluebird.
So George Fury in car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline Turbo. And there's the man running in second, Mobile Dealer Team 05, Peter Brock at the wheel. 3 and a bit seconds the gap, and they've opened up a huge gap over John Bowe, Jim Richards, Graham Bailey, then of course Robbie Francevic and Dick Johnson.
You know that Brock's having a go when you see him getting sideways through that kink. Just momentary locking of a brake as he got down into the left-hander. The crew of the Mobile Holden Dealer Team set off this coming Tuesday to Belgium for the Spa 24-hour Enduro coming up on the 3rd of August. Brock himself going to Hawaii tomorrow and then across to the States, and then he'll join the team in the following week when he goes to Europe on a fact-finding mission to the States to get some more components for the car. Let's have a look at the man Peter Brock in car 05. Great performance so far from him this year at 5th at Oran Park. Didn't finish at Symmons Plains when an oil filter blew off. Didn't start at Sandown, he was overseas, nor Adelaide. 12th at Wanneroo, 1st at Surfers Paradise, 5th Calder, 3rd Lakeside, 7th Winton. 41 years of age, and of course he's 7th overall in the championship at the moment, although 2nd in this race, and wants to go out on a winning note and let the line do some roaring.
Well, it's still got a bit of roaring to do. 11 laps remaining. And look at this, Jimmy Richards coming from nowhere in today's grand final. Now wants to dispute 3rd place with John Bowe and using all of the racetrack, almost a touch that time between the two.
How on earth did Bowe catch that? He went halfway down the hill sideways and he's really having to drive. Look at him work at the wheel. Richards down on horsepower but up on adrenaline.
And look at Bailey. Bailey's in for the ride as well.
I think he might get him here.
He's thought, hang on, this isn't supposed to happen. He's just gone straight past Jim Richards. Richards will snooper him again here. He'll go in very, very deep and try and get Bailey on the outside. No, he doesn't. Straight in underneath. Sorry, Graham. Top chook fella. See ya. Off it. Bye. Tell you what, you're not allowed to do that sort of stuff either. But you saw it. It was every man for himself.
In case of Bailey counting his chickens before they hatched.
Had another chicken gag. Jimmy Richards, car number 1. Now we'll do this one all over again with John Bowe, and I think he's ruffled the feathers of Graham Bailey. We'll see whether Bailey can get back on the pace after being shown the exit road down there under the Goodyear Bridge.
10 laps to go.
Bit of a pity that, because Bailey had really come on strong. In the meantime, that little off-track excursion really cost Richards time on John Bowe. Now he's trying to pick it all up again. They drop over the dog leg down into the left-hander at Castrol turn.
Keeping a check on the margins, 3.3 seconds still. The lead for George Fury over Peter Brock, and the gap 1st to 3rd, Fury to Bowe, is 30 seconds. Very substantial indeed.
He's having a close look at Jim that time. I think he got through that whole manoeuvre without taking any paint off the car. It's not a bad performance, is it?
Here he comes out of the turn, heading down to the right-hander. See whether he can pull in John Bowe again. Beautiful drive this from Jim Richards. There's Bailey coming back again. Bailey's tyres must be still on the strong side.
Yeah. Very strong, and as I said before, he picked up about an extra 20 horsepower during the week when they installed a new engine into the car, prepared by Liz Small of the Roadways organisation in Melbourne. He's responsible for building cars for Alan Grice for the European Touring Car Championship. They also did extensive testing with brakes and brake pad material and feel they made some very important gains. Look at Richards again on the attack, coming up onto the back of Murray Carter. Bowe goes out wide, rounds him up on the outside.
So does Jim. And Bailey starting to pull back a little of that gap. I wonder, will he be as polite when he arrives under Jim Richards maybe in the next lap or so? You just mentioned Alan Grice, and our information is for the round of the European Touring Car Championship that will be held later this evening at Nürburgring in Germany, that Alan Grice is the 8th fastest qualifier in the Roadways Commodore V8. Pole has gone to Walkingshaw. BMW's staging a marvellous comeback, not only here but in the ETC, with Roberto Ravaglia in 2nd. And Grice to start 8th. Here's Jimmy Richards. Moving up on the tail of John Bow as they go over the top of the hill. Past Goodyear Bridge. And I think we could have maybe a challenge next time down through the dogleg to Castrol Corner. Richards is very, very quick through this part of the track.
This is the battle for third. John Bow holding it at the moment, just ahead of Richards. And reminding you, Robbie Francevic, Bow's teammate and the series leader.
Oh, doesn't Richards get that corner beautifully. Down the inside. Not much between them. They come out. There's Graham Hooley of Western Australia. They all pass him. Now, what will Graham Bailey do? He's right on the tail. Here they come across the line. Bailey up on the inside this time. Just sorry, Jim. How much poke has this Chickadee Commodore got, though?
Oh, Richards really tries to get under again.
Oh, there's Richards trying to do it all over again.
Well, this time they swap some paint, and Bailey catches it. Jim comes off second best. Hooley laughing at it all.
What I started to say a lap ago was that Francevic, we should remind you, is still very firmly in 6th place on the racetrack. So even though Fury is leading and looks to have it parcelled up at this stage, the championship seems secure for Robbie Francevic.
6 laps remain in the Castrol Grand Final of the Australian Touring Car Championship from Sydney's Oran Park Raceway. And this fascinating scrap for 3rd place continues. It has been the dice of the race. John Bow, 44 for the Valvoline Volvo dealer team, just holding out Graham Bailey. Bailey's already been shown the off-course excursion route by Jim Richards. But he's come back again with plenty of fighting spirit, past Richards, now up behind Bow, and wants one square shot at him on the inside. But he misjudged that corner just a little.
The best performance from Bailey so far this season was a 6th at Lakeside. So he's into 4th at the moment. He might hang on and make it his best run for the year, but Richards wants to argue all the way on the outside as they come into the braking area for the left-hander at Castrol.
Isn't Jim giving him a work over?
Isn't that a lovely handling car? It just sits flat on the road, does everything Jim wants it to do, as Mike Bergman looks as though he's pulling towards the pits.
5 laps to go in the Australian Touring Car Championship for 1986. George Fury is the race leader. Robbie Francevic still in there, so Francevic will take the series if they stay the way they are at the moment. But we've been concentrating on this because it has been, as I said before, fascinating. Bow locking up. Brake as he comes through the turn down towards Bitcher Pave. And Bailey's only real shot at John Bow is the downhill run to Castrol Corner. If he gets that right and is able to hang on, I don't think Bow will be able to repass him on the straights, because the Commodore certainly has plenty of horsepower and seems to be holding up very well indeed in the tyre department. 4 laps remain in the Castrol Grand Final. Heading up to the 2WS Hill area again, up to Honda Corner and the dog leg. Watch Richards through here. He is just so fast. Clips the grass there, or the dust. Comes right down here as Bow dives underneath Matthews again. In goes Graham Bailey. They take Matthews. And Richards may have lost out just a fraction in that encounter. But he picks up the pace again as they go across the line. With 3 circuits to go.
Well, a great drive in defence from John Bow, a brilliant drive on the attack from Graham Bailey, and Richards somewhere in the middle, Mike. It really has been weird.
This has been the race within the race.
I'm really surprised that Brock didn't get a little closer to the back of Fury, and George has managed to run away with this.
Absolutely. They will get close again as they go through Bitcher Pave. Now the run up to the Goodyear Bridge. There they go. A couple of laps still to run in this touring car finale here at Oran Park. Follow these down into the dogleg area again, the left-hander. I've got a feeling that Richards is setting up for another run here as he goes over the top, clips the infield, sits in behind Bailey. We'll try and pull very tight coming out of here.
Three laps to go for John Bow. Still defending from Graham Bailey, who's now in a position to pass. Pulls out from behind the slipstream of the Volvo. alongside him as they go through the kink in the straight, but has to pull back, find the apex of the turn before he can have another stab through the left-hander. Richards gets closer again. Fury and Brock still waltzing off into the distance. Into the right-hander. And I don't think John Bowers had this much pressure on him for a while. Talk about a driver who's been busy this year. Apart from his commitments with the Volvo dealer team, John Bowers also been running in the Australian Sports Car Championship. Last weekend having had a win in Adelaide. He's probably done more driving this year than any other driver on the professional trail. He's certainly been in fine form. What's going to happen in this dice? No way of predicting it at this stage of the game. Richards, the Australian Touring Car Champion, for perhaps another 2 or 3 minutes, and it looks like it's going to fall into the hands of Kiwi Robbie Francevic. What a debut for the Valvoline Volvo dealer team. In 1986, their first try at a full works effort, and it looks like they're going to pull off the national crown as Bailey again pulls out from behind the slipstream. Doesn't he get close to the back of that bumper bar?
He certainly does, but he was already snookered there because they were coming up on a slower car. That's the car going through the yellow machine.
It'll be the first time that a Volvo has won an Australian Touring Car Championship, adding another brand to the tally. Ford have 12, GM have 8, Jag have 4, Mazda 1, BMW 1. And the first time that a turbocharged car wins an Australian Touring Car Championship.
There's John Bower going through. We've followed that scrap throughout the race. But coming across the line at this moment to take the signal with 1 lap to go is George Fury, still holding that strong buffer over Peter Brock. And here is the race leader, car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. At the end of the front straight, still probably 4 and a bit seconds clear of Peter Brock. He's opened that gap in the last 10 laps here at Oran Park. Down to the right-hander. Freddie Gibson.
He's got good reason to smile.
He certainly has. They might miss the championship by a few points, but they have an exciting package as a motor car to take on the world in Group A competition.
And it's going to get better. They've got a new car on the way for perhaps the Castrol 500 at Sandown with new front suspension, new brakes. And this little car is going to go from strength to strength. And hats off to George Fury for a brilliant performance in this Castrol Grand Final.
Once again,
he's talented.
Coming up towards the hill area again to Honda, the dogleg that'll bring them down into the final turn. And the Tal Malmo farmer, Georgie Fury, has spread-eagled the field here today at Oran Park Raceway. The last turn comes up, the checkered flag comes out, and George Fury of Tal Malmo, New South Wales, will win the battle. Robbie Francevic takes the war in the 86 Touring Car Championship. A win for Fury. Second place will go to Peter Brock, and third place will go to John Bower in the Valvoline Volvo, but they're half a lap behind the field.